The alleged intruder of the Khumalo home swings from the dock to the witness stand. Hello and welcome to Inside the Courtroom, the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial wrap. I'm Linda Mnisi. It's an absolute pleasure to have you with us this afternoon. We're coming to you live from our Randburg studios in Johannesburg. Now, as always, we love hearing from you, so do join the conversation by scanning the QR code to cast your vote on today's poll. So the question that we have for you is that Bongani Ntanzi is back on the stand, so do you think that he stuck to his story or has too many versions, or you simply have not made up your mind yet? Scan that QR code and, of course, start voting. We'll keep the poll running throughout the show to get a sense of what you are saying on the social media platforms as well. You can also interact with us on X. We are at Newzroom 405. And you can also call us or send us your WhatsApp messages. Those numbers will also be reflected on the screen. So we'll keep the conversation going throughout the show. So make sure that you tweet us, you send us your Facebook messages as well as WhatsApp messages. But we begin here. Now, according to the state, Bongani Ntanzi is one of the two men who allegedly entered the Khumalo home on the night that football star Senzo Meyiwa was killed. Now, two of the three witnesses who were in the house during the incident identified Ntanzi as one of the alleged intruders, and that is what is called a dock identification. Those witnesses are Zandi Khumalo, who is the sister of singer Kelly Khumalo, as well as Tumelo Madlala, who is Meyiwa's then, or rather, childhood friend. Now, Bongani Ntanzi is also among the two accused who allegedly deposed a confession statement implicating himself as the alleged intruder. Now, his confession statements are where the state believes the names of the other accused, mostly accused 3 to 5, came from, rather. Ntanzi took the stand on Monday after Muzi Sibiya, the alleged lookout man, closed his case. Now, in chronological order, Ntanzi detailed how one of the investigators in the Meyiwa case reached out to him in May of 2020 in what he describes as a fishing expedition, to ask if he was looking for employment. It later emerged that this was related to the murder of soccer star Senzo Meyiwa, from which point he says he denied any involvement. Now, it's common cause that Ntanzi was arrested on the 16th of June 2020 in what the police say was a murder case, or rather for a murder case in KwaNongoma in KZN. But Ntanzi says he was asked about his involvement in the murder of Senzo Meyiwa, which he denied.
And your testimony now is that you are then asked by Mabena whilst you are in transit about the Senzo Meyiwa case, correct?
Yeah, yes, my lord.
How did that conversation start, and what did he say to you?
My lord, what happened is from my place, there is a turn, and thereafter the road goes up. So just as the vehicle turned, Mabena then asked me, who killed Senzo? I then said, I don't know. He then asked me, where were you on the day Senzo was killed? I then said, I am working, or I'm gainfully employed. I know nothing about things to do with killings. I then said to him, I know nothing with regard to killings. What you can ask me about, and I will respond to you. Clearly, it's something to do with the traditional dance. That I will be able to respond to you. But with regards to killing, I know nothing. Even now, as I'm standing here, I know nothing.
And when he asked you, Mabena, where were you on the day Mr. Meyiwa was killed? Did you tell him where you were?
My lord, Mabena never provided me with a date or when exactly that was. So when you say, where was I on the day of Senzo's killing, someone who is employed, if I'm not at work, I am home. And I'm also not someone who likes to visit outside, because I come from underground, and when I come from underground, I'm tired.
Now, as always, we have guests to unpack the evidence, and we have, in fact, on our video link, Bongani Ntanzi, who is a legal analyst, as well as Melusi. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. And I want to start with you, relating to the arrest of Bongani Ntanzi, Bongani Ntanzi. You know, he goes back to the issue of how he was first contacted by the investigators in this particular case. But most importantly, it seems as though the attack is on the investigation, but also the arrest, because he speaks about how the investigators were looking for a certain Sianda. They even showed him pictures. And he says he had to even give them his ID to show them that he, in fact, was Bongani Ntanzi.
Good afternoon, Linda, and my learned friend Malusi, as well as the viewers at home. Right. Well, as much as this is something that has happened during the trial, within a trial, I don't see anything much to be problem about repeating it somehow, because seemingly now Ntanzi is just explaining as to how he was arrested. Remember that this evidence during the stage of the trial, within a trial, it was the purposes of admissibility. Now, he's just still explaining as to how he was arrested up until he made an appearance. He hasn't maybe tabled his defense, which we are hoping at a later stage is something that is going to happen. But now he's still entitled to explain as to how he was arrested. Yes, he mentioned somebody by the name of Sianda, and then they even showed him a picture. We don't know how far truth it is, but that this is his evidence. And we'll take it on the probative value and probabilities, and as to how is it probable as opposed to the one of Bomhola, Umhan, I mean to say the one who arrested him, and the alleged Mhola, who then says is the one who called him and informed him that the police are looking for you for the case of Senzo Meyiwa. Then it should be the matter of probability as to who one is probable.
Yeah, and Melusi, I mean, when you look at what the police in this case have told us, they said that his name first came from the statement of Absalom Zungu, which of course he denies, but they approached him really with the intention of, after, in fact, it was after they'd done what they call a cold case analysis. So they were going after him knowing that perhaps they are investigating him for the Meyiwa murder case, but also to bring him closer. Then they used the Nongoma case, which they believe is a murder case that he's allegedly involved in. So you listen to his story and you listen to that of the SAPS. And obviously, you know, one looks at perhaps who could be telling the truth and who is not.
Greetings to you, Linda, and to my then colleague, Nen, and to the viewers at home. Yes, obviously, the court has to look at who's telling the truth on how he was arrested. But I think, Linda, I've mentioned this, that I just wonder, or despite how he might have been arrested, if it's there are issues. But at the end of the day, there's a confession that has been admitted as evidence. Yes, of course, if it's looked at holistically, they might try, you know, make it as if it does not have much value. But at the end of the day, he must find a way to challenge it out of the trial within the trial. The trial within the trial was there. It determined the issues of arrest and the issues of making a statement, and it was stated that it's admitted as evidence. But now, yes, and I agree with my colleague, he obviously has to repeat how he was arrested and everything else. But I just wonder how he challenged the confession that has been made as an evidence with the first accused, Sibiya.
Yeah, we'll come back to the confessions later. So, Bongiseni, I want to come back to you because when we listen to his story about how he was arrested, it seems he's going along the lines of, this was a case of mistaken identity, and we know this is a case that has a history of someone who was arrested, and it turned out that this person was a case of mistaken identity, and perhaps when the investigators approached him, they thought he was Sianda. They even showed him issues of, or pictures of someone who had tattoos. He goes on to say even the issue around the gold tooth came up when, you know, he was arrested. Are those the lines that he's going along to say, I'm not the one you're looking for? This is a case of mistaken identity.
Well, as much as he's saying that this is a case of mistaken identity, you must remember that when the police approach him, they approach him for non-Goma case, whether they were trying to centralize the cases. But later on, when they failed to enroll the matter because of some jurisdiction issues, and then they went back to because the investigation was still ongoing, and they went back wherein he was residing to check the hood and what. And that is later on when they started to ask him about the case of Senzo Meyiwa, then the issue of mistaken identity being in relation to the gold tooth or what. Remember, that was a stage of an investigation by then, and the police were entitled to investigate him as to whether at some point he had dreadlocks or at some point he had a golden tooth, which is why he was taken to the doctor, and he was also shown the identity kit, and he was asked about this thing of dreadlocks. It was an investigation. It does not suggest any mistaken identity. And by then, the police, they don't know how many people were involved in this matter, but they are basing the investigation about the information they have that, well, we were told that 2 people entered into the house. Someone had dreadlocks as well as the gold tooth. So it was just an investigation. So you can't say no. You can't just say your defense is based on that this is a mistaken identity. No, that's not correct.
Yeah, and some of the things, Melusi, that he says were taken were his phones, right? And we know that the phones, also play quite a critical role when it comes to issues of identification, but also later on in terms of communication, because you'd recall at some point he said he wasn't in possession of his phone, and it seemed the police could have been in possession of it and making those calls that they're now coming and alleging that he made them.
Yeah, obviously the calls that were made, there are times that it will be shown when it was made, and it can be confirmed from the people who received the calls. But I agree with my colleague on the fact that everything that was happening there was during the investigation stage. But also what is important at this stage, Linda, is that whatever you're presenting to the court as a defense witness in your case, it has to be things that you also raised during the cross-examination stage. Now, I'm not saying the things he's raising are new, but I'm just saying he should work carefully, not just bringing new stuff that was not revealed during the cross-examination stage, and also to his, or while he still bring his own witnesses. But I'm just concerned that he might come with new information when it comes to giving his evidence, which he did not bring during cross-examination.
Yeah, and I'll come back to you, Bongani, because Melusi Xulu raises the issue of possibly getting a different version. Do you think it was a smart move to rehash perhaps what we could have heard in the trial within a trial? And what are the possibilities of really now coming up with a new version?
Yes, there are possibilities of him bringing new version, right? And the only problem that he's facing here is that there is comparison in the cross-examination where the state will likely to have the evidence which he tendered during trial within a trial and the evidence that he gave it, he just gave it now. So that is where maybe he might be finding himself struggling there and there. But as long as it's not something that seems to be contradicting the trial within a trial, he is entitled to bring new evidence now insofar as to how he wants to conduct his defense, because the previous proceeding, it was circumscribed, that was dealing with the issue of an admissibility, not limiting him now, that because you testified during the trial within a trial, you must make sure that when you get to the main trial, you repeat it as it is. He can just tender his defense now, because the other time they were dealing with admissibility, not the trial. So the only problem will be just to change a story which then he testified about during the trial within a trial and make it different now. That is where he can start to be crumbled.
All right, gentlemen, I want you to hang 10 because I want us to take a quick ad break, because when we continue, we'll be looking into the testimony of Bongani Ntanzi further, but also delving deeper into the issue of his alibi. Why is he in KZN? or was he at work? And which one is the truth? Stay tuned. Welcome back, and thank you for choosing to stay with us. You're still watching Inside the Courtroom, the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial wrap. Now, the events of the 17th of June 2020 are still a big point of contention in the trial. Now, this relates to events that transpired in the boardroom where Ntanzi was asked again about his alleged involvement in the Meyiwa case, but also who else he knew. Ntanzi alleges that the lead investigator, that's Brigadier Bongani Ntanzi, was present. But Gininda denies this.
Else did you later come to know his name that was present in that boardroom?
There was also the other one, my lord. I think it ended up being, I'm not sure whether it was Bongani Yende. You call them this band in English.
Braces.
Eh?
Braces.
Your knowledge.
The person that first spoke to you is Colonel Gininda, and indeed, at the time he was a colonel. And he says to you, all that he wants is nothing else but the truth. In what context did he say that?
When he said that, my lord, I did not respond because I expected him to say that in which context was he saying that.
On the 17th of June 2020, he was not present in that boardroom. In fact, the first time he met you, according to him, was on the 18th of June 2020 at Sibanye Stillwater in Carltonville.
Disputed that. I even instructed or told Mr. Mngomezulu to put that to him, that I'm disputing that.
Mfundisi also testified in this court to say that she indeed arrived at that boardroom, but she only arrived later when the interview was about to end.
She made a mistake, my lord, because when I got there, I found them seated there. The only seat that was facing me was the one of Brigadier Gininda.
Ntanzi also says he was asked about who he knows.
Is that the photograph that you are referring to that Brigadier Gininda, amongst others, showed to you in that boardroom?
Correct, my lord, this is the photo I was referring to, and the person on the other side of the vehicle, that is the person that Brigadier Gininda referred to, saying that was me, wearing a cap.
Did you comment on this photograph? What did you say to Brigadier Gininda?
And I refuted that, my lord. I said that was not me, and I also told him that I'd never even visited Vosloorus.
You see the persons that are depicted on this photograph?
I heard for the first time here in court as to who they were. No, I don't know them.
All right, let's bring in our guests now, legal analyst Muzi as well as Sibongiseni Gunene. Gentlemen, thank you so much for staying with us. And I'll come to you, Sibongiseni. The issue of the boardroom is one that is very, very contentious. Who was there? Who asked what? But talk to us about why it is important.
Well, I think the importance about the issue of the boardroom and as to who was there and who was not there. Remember, this is an incident which then happens wherein I think Mangena was also there in terms of the allegation by Ntanzi, if not mistaken. And he also alleges that Gininda was there during the interview. But let's look at this thing this way. When Mangena was testifying in court, he says he was going with the investigation officer checking as to whether there are any injuries which were sustained by the accused in their ankles, just trying to investigate whatever that he was going to do in ballistic, right? And he came to testify in this court, and when he was taken under cross-examination, he acceded to that. However, after short adjournment, then he did a turnaround and said, no, I was mistaken about the boardroom. But to me, somehow, it does not make sense for some reason, because who could possibly interview Bongani Ntanzi? It could be the investigation officer other than Mhola and Mhane and the rest. Those were only sent just to, maybe they were doing this other investigation other than the interview. Even Kininda, when he recorded in his diary, he was talking about that he was the one who was interviewing the accused. But we don't know as to whether indeed he was there at the boardroom, because Ntanzi says the pictures were taken by him, or he ordered that somebody took the pictures, or the other gentleman, I forget who took the pictures. Then this is where it's not clear on the state side, but also even on Ntanzi as to whether indeed what transpired in that boardroom and what is the significance about it, man.
Yeah, and let's, come to you, Melusi. The legal implications of this whole boardroom situation. We know that this was a day after Ntanzi was arrested, and he says he continued to tell them that he was not involved in the murder of Senzo Meyiwa. But also, when you look at the timeline, it was very close to the first alleged confession statement. So when you look at Brigadier Bongani Ntanzi possibly having interviewed him in that particular boardroom, and if the court finds that in fact he was present, what are the legal implications for the state's case?
Well, what is important is that it will show that what the state has stated, he says he was not there, it's not the truth. But the court will have to get proper and convincing evidence from the accused that when I was being interviewed before the first confession statement, there was this particular individual, including Brigadier Grenada, who was a colonel at that time. So the problem that I always see, Linda, when it comes to these issues, when there's a debate about confessions and who was there and who was not there, or whether the other one was assaulted, which is the accused, or whether the police are saying they did not accuse him. It's always the accused on his own, maybe telling the truth, but unfortunately, how he convinces us or the judge, the magistrate, he always finds it difficult. I mean, for example, you might have been assaulted, but they did not assault you in a way that the injuries can be seen. Then you come and say, yes, I was assaulted, but it's difficult to prove that you were assaulted because the injuries are not there. But what is there, the confession is signed, and it shows that you've admitted to the offense. So in this case, yes, he's saying Brigadier Keninda was there, but how does he prove that? That's the difficulty that he has, so that it can at least assist to show some doubts about how the state is presenting its case when it says Brigadier Keninda was not there.
All right, Sibongiseni, and I want us to zoom into the issue of who he knew, because in the last clip that we played, the issue around the pictures of Mthobisi Mncube, accused number 3, as well as Mthokoziseni Mapisa, accused number 4, were beamed in court, and there was, a conversation about whether he knew them and whether he saw them for the first time in Boksburg. Talk to us about the importance of these relationships and, the versions that have been given by Bongani Ntanzi about his co-accused.
Yes, Linda. I think if I remember very well, when, I think if I'm not mistaken, it was the 20th of June when they were doing the plea before Ratam Hwatling. That is when he took off the matter. Then accused number 2 said he knows accused number 1 as well as accused number 5, right? Unfortunately, today it's a different story. He says he knows accused number 1. Just to be precisely on the point of accused number 5, he says they are not acquainted, but he knows him, right? As opposed to accused number 1. Right? What is the importance about them knowing each other? It's the likelihood of you acting in common purpose, because the court need to find out as to whether you guys, do you perhaps have a relationship that can make you to sit down and plan and to do something, as opposed to an incident where is instantly occasionally maybe like a strike or something like that, where a group of people then they can commit an offense. But this one, there is no any reflex action, or maybe it's just happened because of an incident. No, it's something that is alleged to have been planned. So people who can plan must be somebody who has a relationship. So it is important for the common purpose. So that's the reason why the state is trying so hard to prove their relationship and that these accused know each other. And them, the counsel who are representing the accused, just for example, accused number 2. Now he says he does not know accused number 3. Remember, this could be considered as evidence in rebuttal, rebutting the content thereof in the confession. The confession which says then he entered with accused number 3 at Khumalo's home. So the likelihood will be, how could you happen to be associated with somebody you don't know and even enter with him to commit an offense? So he's trying just to say that, no, it's not possible that I was going to enter with accused number 3. I don't even know him. I'm seeing him for the first time here. Yeah. Now it's a matter of reliability and his credibility as to whether indeed there's no any relationship between him and accused number 3. That is a point which I think it can be associated with the confession.
All right, gentlemen, let's quickly take an ad break, because when we come back, I want us to zoom into the issue of the conversation. So after the break, we'll also be joined by our usual commentators. Mabelane is already in studio for us, but also we'll be joined by Bongani Masuku. You'd recall they are, your eyes and ears when it comes to the public and just weighing in on the proceedings and what they make of what is happening, keeping a very, very close eye. And they're also standing on opposite sides. One believes these are the right people that killed Senzo Meyiwa, and the other believes, well, the state has the wrong people. So more of that when we come back. Welcome back, and thank you for choosing to stay with us. You're still watching Inside the Courtroom, the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial wrap. Remember, we're still running our poll question, and let's check in also with what you've had to say. So the question that we're asking you this afternoon is that Bongani Ntanzi is back on the stand. So do you think he's stuck to his story? 21% of you agreeing with the fact that he's stuck with his, or to his story rather. And then 72% of you says he has too many versions, while 7% says I've not made up my mind. So those are your views. I want to quickly check in with your messages on social media platform X at @rapiti_R says he's confused, contradicting his earlier version and forming new ones. Let's move on to your Facebook comments now. And Madota Khumalo says, will this case ever come to an end without the witnesses who were in the house? I smell a rat here. Not so sure about witnesses who were in the house not being called, because if you remember, we had Dumelo Madlala, we had Zandi Khumalo, and we also had Mthokozisi Twala. The last one coming in from Norma Hlukana, who says Ntanzi has no alibi, no clear defense, and did not address his confession. His case is as bad as it has always been. So those are some of your views that are coming through from our social media platforms. But remember, like I said, you can keep the conversation going. Send us those tweets as well as those Facebook messages. We'll read them live on air. But of course, like I indicated earlier on, we still have our guests in studio. I'm joined by Bongani Masuku, who is a commentator who's watching the case very, very closely. He is part of the people that believe that the accused, that are on trial right now are not the ones. So the state has the wrong people. But of course, as usual, you'd also know Mabelane is on the other side of the fence, who believes the state has a case here and has proven it beyond reasonable doubt. The case is not done, but we know that there's a certain group that believes that at this particular point, the state is going to possibly get a conviction here. Now, the dispute with Bongani Ntanzi and Brigadier Bongani Geninda about where they met raged on even during the trial, within the trial. Now, Geninda testified that he met Ntanzi on the 18th of June 2020. This is after his alleged alibi failed. During the testimony of Sergeant Mogane, one of the investigators, he testified about the interaction of Gininda and Ntanzi on the 18th of June. Let's take a look.
Your client tell you the truth, he mustn't lie to you. When we left the yard of the mine, he already had the evidence that he was not at work. Parked outside the premises of the mine at the gate. He asked to speak to Brigadier Gininda, and they had to come into our car because we're with Mabena. So arrived, Brigadier Gininda asked him what was the problem. He said, well, since my work confirms that I was not at work, can I please tell you the truth? Gininda read him his rights again. Gininda then told him that what he's going to say must be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And then he started talking, but Gininda stopped him as he said, stop right there. He said, going further, since I am the investigating officer in this case, I will need that this be performed by somebody that is neutral. He said, Mr. Ntanzi, are you satisfied? And Mr. Ntanzi confirmed that he was satisfied.
All right, so like I said, our guests, our legal analysts are still joining us via video link, but I want to start here in the studio. Bongani, you know, as always, because obviously you are on the side of the accused, I want to know what you make of Bongani Ntanzi's case so far.
We are still building.
Yeah.
It's called the foundation phase, right? We still need to put in the meat, we still need to dig a bit of a foundation, lay the foundation properly. Then we'll call our people to come and testify. We also know for a fact that it's going to be difficult to get people, especially when you talk about their confessions, right? Because most of those people are police officers. So I will tell you without a shadow of doubt that that's the only part where I'm like, hey, this is going to be difficult. Because you don't have a police officer who will then come and rebut what Abu Gininda said. And that's where I think we'll have some difficulties. But other than that, we should be getting proper witnesses as well to collaborate some of the stuff that Ntanzi has already said.
Yeah, there was one, in fact, investigator or former investigator who was called during the trial within a trial. And of course, we know how that went. The court finding that the confession statements were made freely, voluntarily, and without undue influence, at least on a preliminary basis, because there's still the final judgment that will be made. But I want to come to you, Mabelane. What do you make of Bongani Ntanzi's case so far? Already with my analysts, we've unpacked the issue of the arrest, but also the boardroom meeting and who exactly he knows amongst his co-accused.
Yeah, I don't know what they are building because Bongani Ntanzi is confused. What he said in a trial within a trial is the opposite of what he's saying now. One, in that boardroom, it was Gininda who took pictures. Now it is Mabena who took pictures. And we know this, at the center of all this is going to be a credibility. Now, he's going to have a serious problem because Ramasipile projected a picture in court. And he said that picture is from Mthobisi Mncube's cell phone. But then we know that Mthobisi Mncube's cell phone was discovered after he had made the confession. On the 17th of June 2020, Mthobisi Mncube's cell phone was not discovered by the investigation. So where did that picture come from? It wouldn't have been there, that particular picture. So he's having difficulties in terms of navigating and in terms of building his credibility.
Yeah, just clarify for us, because when you say his phone was discovered on the 17th of June 2020, recall Mthobisi Mncube was arrested in 2015 on an unrelated charge, and that's where the police say they found his phone, those who were linked to the taxi unit.
Yeah, Mthobisi Mncube was arrested in February 2015, and he went to trial. He was sentenced in July 2017. At that particular point, the investigation team of the Senzo Meyiwa case, they didn't know that he existed. When Bongani Ntanzi made the confession on the 19th of June 2020, it was within his confession where Mthobisi Mncube's name was mentioned. Gininda followed that to find out who is Mthobisi Mncube. And then he realized that Mthobisi Mncube is arrested. He tells Mangena to go and look at the firearm that Mthobisi Mncube was arrested with. He asked Mabasa to look at the data of Mthobisi Mncube. And these events, they happen after Ntanzi has made a confession. Hence, I'm saying that picture couldn't have existed on the 17th of June because Mthobisi Mncube's phone was not discovered at that point.
Yeah, Bongani, let me come back to you. I know you're itching to respond to that, but in your response, and I want us to just keep it, tight, talk to us about then the issue of the alibi. In your response to Mabelani, please also include the issue of the alibi. Is it clear where Bongani Ntanzi was, at this point at least? Is it clear where Bongani Ntanzi was on the 26th of October? Because the police have already testified. They said he told us that he was at work, we went to his workplace, and that alibi failed. At this particular point, he's already spoken about, what he was asked when he was arrested in the car. He was told, they believe that he's involved in the murder of Senzo Meyiwa, and he says, I've denied it, and it's either I was at work or I was back at home.
At this moment, the problem is we are at the beginning of our case. What if we call somebody to come and corroborate when Ntanzi was on the 26th? We haven't done that yet. So, yehisan amapa. Yehisan amapa. The night is still young. We are still going to call people to collaborate that. Confession. I'm surprised. We can speak about the confession. Yes, they were accepted preliminary, whatever word we want to use. But Linda, please tell me, which one do you accept? If these people confessed and it was free and voluntary, one says, I think it's accused number one. He then creates a picture that, accused number one. He says, accused number 5 was sitting outside waiting to drive the vehicle out. Right, getaway car. Accused number 4 was sitting next to the window. Accused number 3 and accused number 2 went inside the house. And then accused number 1, was roaming around the yard. That's the confession from accused number 1. It's accused number 2.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm making a mistake. That's the confession from accused number 2. Accused number 1 then gives you a different confession. The noticeable thing with that confession is that it includes Makimbi and what? I forgot these 2 guys.
Marco.
Exactly. So I am sitting here and I'm like, which one do you accept? If you are saying these confessions were made free and voluntarily, but the confession itself, it just contradicts one another. So which one do you accept? Do you take the one for accused number 1 and say, oh no, this is the one is correct, or you take the one for accused number 2? Which one is the truth between these 2 confessions?
All right, let's go to Sibongiseni Guneda. Sibongiseni, you've heard the gentleman in studio regarding the alibi as well as the confession statement. Just help us understand, because Bongani Masuku is raising an issue of the discrepancies. One, alleging that there was a Marco and Makimbi, and the other one mentioning the other accused who are in the dock. It seems to me that here we're talking about what could be, material issues in the confession statement. But also, is it clear where Bongani Ntanzi was, at least at this point? Because we've had the trial within a trial. We've had police officers come and testify to say he said he was at work and that alibi failed. At this particular point, he's on the stand. He gets the opportunity to tell the court, and the court gets to observe and listen to him and his explanation. Is it clear where he was on the 26th of October?
Yeah, well, the confession stories, I think that is very simple. I don't understand how it become a problem, because the police, they've taken those confession, by the peace officer, and then they investigated the confession. You can't compare this thing of Makimbi and Marco as well as accused number what, because the one of Makimbi and Marco was investigated and it was found to be false. So when they investigate the other confession, then, which is why we have accused number 1 to 5 in that doc. So it's just because of investigation. because the police at the time they received the confession, they didn't fold their arms. They investigated the confession thereof. So to be stuck on Makimbi and Marco when the explanation was given by both, I think it was Sergeant Mkola as well as Gininda, says they investigated this confession. They found that the information about Marco and Makimba was false. So what is important in the legal concept on the confession is, because the confession is binding the maker, right? It's about how the said person is implicating himself or herself in the crime. Does it speak to the elements of the crime that have been preferred? Does it speak to the events as to how the crime was committed? And that is what is important. The other people who are then later on mentioned, they are important for the purposes of, it could be the SAPS or investigation, right? Now, let me just take the alibi issue about accused number 2. Well, we know during the trial, within a trial, the alibi was very crucial and important for him to say, okay, I could not have been deposed this confession because on this day I was here, right? To expect something extraordinary or magical about the alibi at this stage, I think maybe, I don't know how that is possible when you will have an opportunity to dismantle a confession using an alibi and say it could not be me who has deposed this statement. I was here. The reason why maybe I signed this statement is because I was tortured and what, but this is the evidence that I want to give this court, to say this to this court. It can never be me. I was only at Wanongoma or I was at work. So the alibi was very crucial for him, for the trial within a trial, so that the confession was not going to be admitted.
Yeah, so Melisipulu, you hear Smogi saying, he says it was very important for the trial within the trial, and now we've opened his case. I mean, we're discussing confession statements. We've gone to a point where he's testified past the confession statement. In fact, now he's on his second confession statement, or alleged confession statement, that was made before Magistrate Vivian Cronje. Smogiseni raises the issue of, if there is an alibi, then it couldn't be that you are the one that confessed. You can't confess to something that you know nothing of. You were not there, you were in KwaZulu-Natal, or you were at work. So it can't be that you know what happened or how Senzo was killed and that you, in fact, participated in this murder.
Yes. I hear what my colleague is saying, and it's totally true, that you can't make a confession of something that you don't know about. But obviously, when it comes to alibi, Linda, the accused just needs to raise the alibi, and the state needs to just prove or disprove the alibi that is false. And of course, when they went to his workplace, they found out that at the time when this murder occurred, he was not at work. So that becomes a problem. So when you raise an alibi, whether you've made a confession or not, but when you basically raise an alibi, the best thing that needs to be done is that at least it's proven to be true. And if it's disproved or it's proven to be false, it becomes a problem against you. So now with Ntanzi, we have a confession, in fact, 2 confessions, and then we have an alibi that has been disproved. So I see that there's a huge mountain for him to climb. It's unfortunate that there is that sense of belief that, well, the accused are not the right people to be there. But even if they are the right people to be arrested, the question is, why have they not arrested the person who sent them, allegedly, which is Ms. Khumalo? So there are all those questions. But when we look at the evidence, we have to look at evidence holistically and look at what and what we have now. We have the confessions and we have an alibi that has been disproved. So what's the next explanation by the accused? We'll hear as we go and as they make arguments.
All right, let's take a quick ad break, because when I come back, or when we come back, we'll get into just the evidence around the assault, because the allegations of assault are very critical to also throwing out the confession statement. But also, there's also the issue of the disputed lawyer, Ntokozo Mjiako. So I want you gentlemen to be thinking about that while we take a break. More of this when we come back. Welcome back. Let's keep the conversation going. I'm still joined by my guests in studio, Mabelane, as well as Bongani Masuku. On the video link, I have Muzi Sibiya, who's a legal analyst, as well as Bongani Ntanzi. I'll come to you, Mabelane. I mean, we've heard all those issues, but there's also the issue of Ntokozo Mjiyako. You know, when you look at the commentary on social media, some people say the state must call him, right? Because also there were allegations of, you know, that license number that, you know, was, in fact, there were issues with it. You'll remind me, you know, the name of it, but also...
I think it's also to do with LLP.
Yeah, so, but also the issue around the confession before Magistrate Vivian Cronje, quickly.
Yeah. Yes, when Cronje was giving her testimony,
Yeah.
Ntanzi said he doesn't know who Mr. Mjiyako is at all. He doesn't know him. But when he came to take the stand, he said, in fact, I know who Ntokozo Mjiyako is because I met him in Bosbeck for the first time on the 24th of June, 2020. But then, here is the question that I think also my brother must help me to understand. How do you know, how do you then say you don't know this person when you have met him 5 times? On the, he started meeting Mjiyako in July, the 17th of July, the 3rd of August, the 20th of August, the 27th and the 5th of October, and at the 27th of October in Boksburg when they appeared for the first time. But then when the magistrate came, he said he doesn't know him. So unfortunately, the state can't call Mjiyako. My learned friends will tell you about Section 201, client lawyer privilege. They can't call him, but they can prove that Mjiyako represented him.
Your thoughts on this?
I'm simply saying, man, when Ntanzi was saying, he even said it now, he's like, guys, this man was shoved into my throat, did not know where he came from, neither my family know. So when he says that I don't know Mjiyako, simply put, hey, Mnisi ngihlangane lapha Newzroom Afrika, but I don't know Mnisi. I was told by Newzroom Afrika this is Mnisi. Mnisi is going to do 1, 2, 3. That's basically how I got that's how I got in contact with Mnisi. That's what Ntanzi is saying. This man was shoved into me. I don't know. Can you please tell me, who called the guy? Who called Mjiyako to say, hey, there's Ntanzi there? Who called him?
Who called Mjiyako, Sibongiseni? Those are the questions that are coming from studio. But, you know, we hear that he, in fact, admits to having terminated the mandate for, you know, when the lady who came from Mjiyako's office came. So the question is, how do you terminate a mandate that you did not give in the first place?
Well, that is where there is a problem, because the mandate might have been tacit, because to say it was written down, maybe I would be wrong there, because the state would have brought that evidence in court. So then there might have been a relationship in between Ntanzi and Mjiyako as the reason why the law firm came to court to come and terminate the mandate. But however, then there is something very strange about this thing. There was already a confession that was made by Ntanzi before he met Mjiyako. And even the Section 105, which they were talking about, the negotiation, the plea bargaining, does not necessitate that somebody must go and make a second confession. It's very strange that an attorney can accompany his clients to go and make a confession somewhere. There is a problem. It does not make sense. Why do you have to make the second confession? Because even the Section 105 in itself, it speaks about how you will be admitting to the offense. There is a serious problem about Mjiyako. But coming to this privilege, so this privilege cannot just be thrown on the air. One, there must be a relationship that you have already established, or the mandate that you have gave to somebody. Maybe by the fact that Ntanzi has already told the court that I don't know this gentleman, and yes, he was there, but I've never instructed him. Automatically, then you cannot then now come and rely on the privilege issue, because the person does not say he knows the attorney. The time wherein somebody has to waive the privilege is when there was a relationship that was created between himself and the attorney.
Yeah, so then, Muzi Sibiya, is it the state who's supposed to call him Giaco, or does it now lie with Bongani Ntanzi to say, come to the stand and explain what happened?
Yeah, well, it's not the problem of the state necessarily. I believe that it's the accused who will have to prove that he doesn't know Giaco. But you know, one of the questions I had, the thing about Giaco is strange. But one of the questions I had, as Mabelen was saying, was when they were busy postponing on the other cases, did he tell the court that I don't know this attorney? Because especially as private attorneys, Linda, we don't just go to court without a mandate from the family, maybe, and the accused, importantly. So during the stage, what were they doing when they were postponing? But also, what is strange about Giaco is that, and this is not to be disrespectful, but there's no attorney who will just agree that his client makes a confession. First, you have to read the docket and be thoroughly satisfied that there's strong evidence against him. But even that confession, you don't rush to make confessions. You maybe wait until it's time for trial. Then maybe you'll make a plea in terms of Section 112 of the Criminal Procedure Act. But that's just me thinking about how there are some things that they don't make sense. But obviously, if the accused are not happy with, if they get convicted because of these confessions and other things, they can still appeal. Maybe the courts of appeal might come to a different conclusion.
Interesting inputs, gentlemen. Thank you very much for your time. But let's quickly check in with what you've been saying on the social media platforms, because I know we called on you to get in touch with us and, of course, tell us about what exactly you make of this particular case. On Facebook, we have Noma Hlukana, who says, question stands. Where was Ntanzi on the 26th of October 2014? The next comment coming in on our platforms, social media platforms, from Dilizandlo Zingelwayo, who says, Noma Hlukana, responding, of course, to that previous post, I think Ntanzi and his defense must get cell phone records of the day. They're speaking there about the issue of the alibi. Let's quickly check in with the poll question and how you voted there. So the question was on what you think of Ntanzi being on the stand and what he's told the court so far. 17% saying he's stuck to his story. 75% of you saying there are too many versions, and 8% of you saying that I've not made up my mind. So those are the votes that you've been casting through scanning that QR code on your screen. Thank you very much for your inputs. We really do value them. Of course, when we continue with this show, you'll also get an opportunity to weigh in. But of course, that's where we leave it at for today. Ntanzi continues with his testimony on Monday. You and I will be back again next week to break it all down. Until then, have a good one.